He raised me like I was his world, called me his pride, his blood. But when I needed him most, he chose his secrets over me. But then, I made sure those secrets screamed his name forever. He raised me like I was his world, called me his pride, his blood. To everyone else, my father was a legend. A man of quiet strength, unwavering loyalty, and fierce protection. To me, he was the sky itself, constant, vast, impossible to doubt. I remember how he'd tuck me in every night, his voice a whisper against the monsters in my mind. He said I was his legacy, his reason to fight the darkness of the world. And for the longest time, I believed him. We lived in a house filled with warmth, or at least, the illusion of it. My mother had died when I was 6, in what was labeled an unfortunate accident. A car crash, they said. No suspects. No questions. Just pain buried in a box with roses on top. After that, it was just him and me. And he became everything. He packed my lunch with tiny notes that said, "Be brave, my lioness." He cheered at every school play, even the ones where I forgot my lines. He taught me to ride a bike, to swim, to defend myself. When boys broke my heart in high school, he didn't yell. He just sat beside me with a cup of cocoa and said, "No one will ever love you like I do." I believed that. Because no one had ever made me feel so protected, so seen. But even then, there were moments. Quiet slips in his mask. Questions he wouldn't answer. Shadows that flickered in his eyes when certain names were spoken. I remember once, at 14, I found a locked drawer in his study. I was curious, not suspicious, just a child chasing stories. When he caught me, his face didn't turn angry, it went blank. Empty, in a way I didn't understand back then. He knelt down and said, "Some things, baby, you never open. Not because they're bad, but because they were meant to stay buried." I nodded. Because I trusted him. God, I trusted him. I built my world on the foundation of his love. And when I say love, I mean it in the way a starving soul clings to the only warmth it's ever known. I wore his pride like armor, carried his name like a crown. Wherever I went, I was his daughter. People respected me, not for who I was, but for whose I was. And I reveled in it. Until everything began to crack. It started small. Whispers at school. A teacher pulling me aside and asking if I was okay. I didn't understand why. I was fine. My father and I were great. We laughed. We had traditions. We were close, weren't we? But then I began to notice. Late night calls he'd take in the garage. Unexplained bruises on his knuckles. A name I overheard, Amara, which he denied knowing. His eyes, once filled with warmth, now seemed always calculating. I told myself I was overthinking. That maybe I was just lonely, projecting nonsense onto the only person who had never left me. Until that night. That one night that shattered everything. It was a Thursday night. I remember because we always had pizza on Thursdays. It was our tradition, half pepperoni, half mushroom, extra cheese. He was late that evening. No call, no message. Just silence. I waited by the window like I used to when I was little, watching headlights pass and hoping one of them would stop in front of our house. By the time the clock hit 10:47 p.m., my stomach was in knots. Not from hunger. From something else. Something I couldn't name yet. When the front door finally opened, he walked in like nothing was wrong. No apology. No explanation. Just a half-hearted smile and a box of lukewarm pizza in his hand. "Long day," he said simply, tossing his keys on the counter. But I wasn't a child anymore. "Where were you?" I asked. His smile faltered, just for a second. Barely noticeable unless you knew him the way I did. He shrugged. "Work emergency." But he didn't smell like the office. He smelled like smoke and perfume. And blood. I didn't ask again. I just nodded and sat down at the table. He didn't eat. just picked at his slice while his phone buzzed twice. He ignored it, but I caught the name that flashed briefly on the screen. Amara. The same name I had heard him whisper a few weeks ago on a call he thought I couldn't hear. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I tiptoed to his study, where the locked drawer lived. My heart pounded like it knew I was crossing a line I'd never return from. But something in me was already shifting. The blind faith that once protected me was dissolving, giving way to something colder, sharper. I found the key hidden behind a frame on the bookshelf. When I opened that drawer, my world split in two. Inside, I found a worn photo of a woman I didn't recognize, her eyes hauntingly familiar, letters, dozens of them, written in a woman's handwriting, all signed a flash drive, and a police report. My fingers trembled as I opened the file. Victim, Amara D. Verma. Status, missing. Last seen, October 12, 2014. Known associate, Rajan Verma, father of one child, no prior charges. My father's name. I didn't understand. Was she family? A friend? A lover? Why was her name buried in a police report? Why did he hide it? And why did the letters refer to me? She deserves the truth, Rajan. She has a right to know who I am. You can't erase me forever. I sat there, cold sweat clinging to my skin, the house suddenly feeling unfamiliar, like I was in a stranger's home. In a stranger's life. I took the flash drive to my room, plugged it in, and opened the only file on it. It was a video. Shaky. Blurry. But clear enough. A woman sat in a small room, speaking into the camera, her voice raw and tear-stained. My name is Amara. And if you're watching this, it means he never told you. It means he kept me buried. It means I was never supposed to exist in your story. But I do. I do. She paused. I'm your mother. The world collapsed around me. The breath in my chest vanished. And all I could do was stare at the screen as her voice cracked into a whisper. Your father took everything from me, including you. My name is Mara. And I am your mother. The screen froze on her tear-soaked face, and all I could do was sit there, paralyzed. I replayed the video. Once. Twice. A third time, hoping I had misunderstood. Hoping there was some logical explanation. But there wasn't. My father, the man who raised me, protected me, said I was his blood, had lied. About everything. The letters told more of the story. They were love letters at first. Full of hope, plans, laughter. She spoke of their dreams, of building a life together. And then, they changed. One read. Rajan, I don't care about the threats. I just want to see her. I want my daughter to know I exist. That I never gave her up. That I've waited every day just to hold her again. And another. You said you loved me. Then why are you hiding her from me? Why are you letting her grow up believing I'm dead? I felt like the walls of our house were closing in. Every corner held a ghost. Every framed picture looked like a lie. I barely noticed the door creak open behind me. My father stood in the doorway, eyes locking onto the flash drive still glowing in my laptop. His face didn't twist in surprise. It didn't shatter with guilt. No. He simply sighed, as if this was a conversation he'd been avoiding for years. You weren't supposed to find that, he said quietly. I stood up slowly, heart pounding like war drums. She's alive? I asked, voice trembling. She's alive, and you've kept her from me all these years? She was alive, he corrected. His voice was flat, emotionless. What do you mean was? I asked, though I already knew. The ache in my bones told me. He closed the door gently and stepped inside, his shadow longer than I remembered. Amara was unstable. She tried to take you away from me when you were a baby. Said I was controlling. Dangerous. She poisoned you against me before you could even speak. I did what I had to do to keep you safe. By faking her death? I whispered. By lying to me for 20 years? His jaw clenched. I didn't lie. I protected you. No, I said, stepping back. You controlled me. He didn't deny it. He just stared. That same blank face I saw years ago when I touched that drawer. That same cold silence. I asked him then, through gritted teeth, fighting back the sob that threatened to break me. Did you kill her? He looked me dead in the eye and didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence screamed louder than words ever could. I ran. Out of the room, out of the house, out of the life I thought I knew. I didn't care where I was going, only that it was far, far away from him. But something inside me had already begun to burn. A rage that no amount of distance could extinguish. He raised me like I was his world? Then why did he destroy the woman who gave me mine? He called me his pride, his blood? Then why did he rewrite my story in lies and silence? He told me he was all I had. And maybe for a long time, I believed that. But now? Now I had something stronger than love. I had the truth. And I wasn't going to bury it like he did. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, but because I refused to. Because sleep meant surrender. And surrender meant silence. And I had already been silent for 20 years. The next morning, I packed a bag and left that house, not as a daughter escaping her home, but as a storm retracing every shattered path she never knew was hers. My first stop was the local records office. I asked for Amara Verma's death certificate. The clerk typed, searched, waited, then frowned. There's no official record of an Amara Verma's death in this district, she said, flipping her screen toward me. You sure about the name? I nodded, hiding the tremble in my hands. Yes, I'm sure. If there was no death certificate, then one of two things had happened. Either she had disappeared without a trace, or someone had made sure she disappeared without a trace. I needed more. Proof. Witnesses. Answers. I found her old address on one of the envelopes from the drawer, an apartment complex on the edge of the city. It was worn down, paint peeling, windows cracked, but still standing like a broken memory refusing to fade. The woman who lived in the apartment next door answered cautiously when I knocked. Amara? She asked when I mentioned the name. She hasn't lived here in, what, almost 20 years. My heart sank. Do you remember her? She gave a slow nod. Quiet girl. Sweet. She used to sing at night. Beautiful voice. Said she had a daughter she wasn't allowed to see. Her eyes grew distant. Then one day, she just stopped coming home. Did anyone come looking for her? She hesitated. Yes. A man. Tall. Sharp suit. Looked important. Said he was her husband. Said she had a breakdown. That she was being taken care of. My stomach twisted. I showed her a photo of my father. She paled. That's him. I thanked her and left. Each step I took was like a thread unraveling. The tighter I pulled, the more truth fell into my hands, and it was all filth. My father had told everyone she was unstable. He painted her as a danger, a problem to be erased. But the letters told a different story, one of a mother fighting tooth and nail to get her child back. She wasn't unstable. She was silenced. And now, I had a mission. To give her voice back. I found one of the attorneys listed in the custody papers, Mr. Deepak Khanna. Old, retired, but still sharp as a knife. When I walked into his home and told him my name, he froze. Your father told me you died with her, he said quietly. I blinked. Excuse me? He swallowed hard. He said Amara took you and crashed the car into a lake. Said you both drowned. That's why he filed the second petition. The one to close the case permanently. I sat there stunned. So he didn't just erase her from my life. He erased me from hers. I asked the lawyer if he still had the original case file. He did. He handed me a dusty brown envelope full of evidence, reports, timelines. And at the bottom, buried like a secret, was a picture of Amara holding a baby in her arms. Me. The same smile I'd seen in my own childhood photos. But her arms looked more like home than anything I remembered. I left that house with more than just a file. I left with purpose. My father had built an empire of lies. He stood tall on a throne made of my mother's bones and my stolen name. But I had her letters, her voice, her video, and I had the truth. And with those, I could set fire to everything he built. I didn't return home. Not because I was afraid, but because I was no longer his daughter. I was Amara's child now, and I was going to finish the story he tried to end. My father had built his reputation as a respected community leader, donations, awards, speeches at schools about integrity and family values. Everyone called him noble. Everyone believed in the lie. But I had a plan. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't confront him in public. No, that would be too merciful. I would destroy him slowly, the same way he erased my mother. The same way he watched her suffer while smiling at the world like nothing happened. The first thing I did was create an anonymous blog titled, Daughter of the Forgotten. I uploaded my mother's letters, one by one. I blurred names at first, just enough to get people asking, who was Amara? Who took her child? Why wasn't she ever found? Within a week, the blog had thousands of views. By the second week, it had media attention. And by the third week, my father's name was whispered like a ghost in every newsroom across the city. Still, I remained silent. I let the whispers grow louder. Then came the second blow. I leaked the video. Her face. Her voice. Her broken confession. If you're watching this, it means he won. The internet exploded. People started digging. The lawyer who'd helped silence the case was contacted. The apartment neighbor gave her statement. Even the old clerk from the records office confirmed the death certificate never existed. My father had no idea I was behind it all. He came on the news, calm, smooth, manipulative, and said, "These are malicious lies intended to tarnish my reputation. I loved my wife. I raised my daughter alone. These attacks are disgraceful." I smiled while watching him lie, because I knew what was coming next. One final leak. One truth so sharp it couldn't be denied. I uploaded a copy of the original custody case, signed by both parents. And beside it, a photo. Amara holding me, smiling at a birthday party. The caption read, "She never gave up on me. He just made sure no one could hear her." That was the match. And the fire spread fast. Organizations rescinded awards. Sponsors pulled support. News anchors demanded accountability. The phrase, "daughter of the forgotten," trended worldwide. And for the first time in his life, my father wasn't praised. He was questioned, investigated, alone. He tried to reach me, called dozens of times, left messages saying things like, "You don't understand the full story. I did what I had to do to protect you. Let's talk. I'm still your father." But no, he wasn't. Not anymore. Because a father doesn't bury the truth just to protect himself. A father doesn't choose his secrets over his child. And if he wanted to know what it felt like to be haunted by a voice he couldn't silence, then he could live the rest of his life hearing hers. Over and over. The fall came quicker than I expected. Not because the world was kind, but because he had built everything on lies too fragile to last under fire. The charity he ran? Exposed for misusing funds. Records revealed that money meant for widows and children was used to silence lawyers and bury my mother's case. Donors pulled out. Investigations opened. The organization crumbled within weeks. The awards he flaunted like armor? Revoked. One by one. Pictures of him shaking hands with ministers and celebrities? Deleted from their pages. He became a virus everyone wanted to pretend they never touched. People he'd known for decades. People who once stood beside him in speeches and ceremonies. They all distanced themselves with polite apologies and cold silence. But the public wasn't so polite. Online, They dragged his name through the mud. How can a man erase a mother and life for 2 decades? He's a monster, not a father. Where is the justice for Amara Verma? Strangers started leaving flowers at what used to be my mother's old apartment building. They wrote notes, lit candles. Some left drawings of a woman holding a child, reuniting in a sky full of stars. She had become a symbol of stolen motherhood. And I became her voice. But the most powerful part of all was watching him lose control. My father, once poised, calm, untouchable, was now snapping at reporters, storming off stages, filing desperate lawsuits he couldn't win. He tried to paint himself as a victim, but no one bought the performance anymore. He tried to hold a press conference to explain everything. Only 5 people showed up. 2 of them heckled him. I watched from a distance, hidden under a scarf and sunglasses. He looked like a ghost, not because he'd lost wealth or status, but because he was finally being seen for who he truly was. A coward, a manipulator, a man who traded truth for legacy and lost both. And then came the day he cracked. He called me. One last time. He didn't beg. He didn't shout. He just broke. Tell them to stop, he whispered into the phone. Please. I'm sorry. I never wanted it to be like this. And I said the words he had never said to her. The words she wrote in every letter. The words she needed to hear, but never did. You should have let her speak. Now, the world will never stop listening. And I hung up. Not in anger, but in closure. Because he was no longer a giant to fear. He was just a man buried under the weight of his own silence. After the storm, there was silence. But this time, it wasn't forced. It was the kind of silence that follows after justice. Not complete, not perfect, but real. I went back to that abandoned room, the one where my mother once whispered her love into every corner, hoping someone, someday, would hear it. And I stood in the center, with her letters in one hand, and her strength in the other. I didn't cry this time. I didn't break. Because I finally understood. My mother didn't die when her voice was silenced. She died when no one fought to remember it. And now, I would make sure the world never forgot her again. I used the same blog, the same platform that had burned my father's empire to the ground, and gave it a new name. The Amara Foundation, for every silenced mother. It started as a whisper. But whispers become roars when spoken by enough broken voices. I gathered women, mothers who had lost custody through manipulation, through lies, through systems that favored power over truth. They came with stories, with tears, with rage. And I listened. We built shelters. We funded legal aid. We offered therapy, education, and something far rarer, belief. Every time a woman said, "No one ever believed me," I told her, "We do now." And I didn't stop there. We opened an exhibit, The Forgotten Voices, a room full of recordings, photos, diary pages, a wall filled with names of mothers who were erased by the ones who claimed to love them. And at the center, encased in glass, one torn letter, written in blue ink, smeared with tears, addressed to a daughter she was forced to leave behind. My mother's letter. The caption read, "She was never crazy. She was silenced. This is her voice." And mine. People came from everywhere. Some cried. Some brought their own letters. One little girl, barely 10, walked up to me and said, "My mom said your mom was brave. I want to be like her." And for the first time in years, I let myself smile. Not the smile of survival. Not the smile of revenge. But a smile that said, she didn't live in vain.